Morning, guys. So, um, hopefully you've turned in your paper by now. You haven't finished. I'm sorry, I don't know why the lighting is so weird right now. Recording this a little bit late, so that might be why. Um, oh well, sorry. So, um, we're going to talk about a couple things today. I'm going to introduce some new things to you. I'm going to be talking a lot, and I'm sorry, but I will try to type out a couple things while I'm talking, and so that way you have those notes for you to use. You're going to do a little bit sort of identification for right now, but we're going to start a new unit today, and I want to make sure that you have the stuff that you need um, to be successful with this unit, essentially. Um, so this unit is called Murder Mystery. Uh, and essentially what we're going to be doing throughout the entire thing is we're going to look at a couple different things. So first off, we're going to look at common things that you find in mystery stuff. If you've ever watched anything that has any sort of mystery in it, it's most certainly going to be something that you can identify quickly. Um, but there's similar things in most of these, right? And so you can expect things like um, we expect things like detectives, because if there's a mystery, typically a murder mystery, especially there's somebody who has died, and so there's something that needs to be solved, right? Typically, who's the murderer? Um, they're not always that serious. Sometimes it's who stole this or who, um, I don't know who, where did this person disappear to? Recently, Netflix has brought back Unsolved Mysteries. I don't know if you've watched it or not. I think there's maybe 12 episodes. But it's a show actually from my childhood that used to scare me to death because it was terrifying. And if your parents watched it whenever they were kids, or just when they were younger, they probably also were a little bit terrified by it. So Netflix is a little bit less terrifying, but it still has its moments. But essentially, when you think about mystery, what do you typically think about? What do you think about there's something that needs to be fixed or solved? Something has happened that's not expected. Something has happened that needs to be figured out, right? And so you have to work through different problems to sort of get yourself where you need to go. And so oftentimes you'll see either problem solving happening where you have the main detective is solving these things, but then also probably will have a sidekick or somebody who is sort of helping him. If you've ever watched the show Sherlock, you have Sherlock and then Watson. That was actually a book first. Sherlock Holmes was several stories first, and so Benedict Cumberbatch has done a great job with that, but he was not the first, or will he be the last? I'm sure. Um, when we think about how we watch things like this, um, sometimes while you're watching, you may just sort of zone out. You may just be kind of watching it. It may just be an entertainment thing. But I've noticed, especially with Unsolved Mysteries coming back, that a lot of people are starting to try to figure out some of these things on their own. And so they do a lot of research. And I've even found myself saying, well, what happened to these people after the show premiered? Because I didn't watch it again until I don't think I watched the first couple episodes until like a week or two after it premiered. And I just thought, oh, gosh, I wonder what happened to those people. Did they ever find them? Because usually it's people have disappeared, but it also sometimes it's people have seen aliens. People have seen ghosts. Sometimes it's people have. Sometimes people have been killed mysteriously and they can't figure out why. And so when we think about mysteries, we always think, is there something that can be solved? And these detectives have looked through these things, and the police officers have looked, and they've done everything they can, and they can't figure out what's happened, right? And this is like a big industry, mystery, everything. And I'm not talking about the detectives who I'm talking about like in Hollywood. It's a whole genre of books and movies and television shows that people will just eat up. And there's a culmination of things happening here. It's we want something to sort of keep us guessing. If you've ever watched any sort of psychological thriller, they always keep you guessing, right? If you've ever watched Scooby Doo, which we're going to watch some today, well, you're going to watch some today. But if you ever watched any of those things, you kind of figure out relatively quickly that there is this sort of appeal to mystery solving. And oftentimes when we have mystery solving, you have a group dynamic. Now, obviously in Scooby Doo, that's a little bit more clear. But sometimes you have things like, for example, if you ever watch Law and Order SVU, they have a whole team that sort of works together to fix a case, to like figure it out. And so it's not always the case that you just have one person trying to sort things out. Even Sherlock Holmes doesn't work on his own. He's kind of a jerk, but he doesn't work on his own. And so there's this idea that we have to have somebody to sort of talk through things with and sort of like bounce ideas off of. And if you don't have those things, it's really difficult to sort of figure out things. Um, and I think a lot of times we all, as humans, assume that if something is not like a murder, for example, that we can try to figure it out on our own. But sometimes you need those skills to sort of work with other people, to make these problems work through or work out, I guess. Um, and so, if we were in person right now, we'd be doing a ton of group work with this. And I hate that we are not in person right now. Hopefully, the cases get under control and we can get back in the classroom relatively soon, as soon as it's safe. Um, because I do miss you guys, and I miss being able to have these conversations with you guys and talk through things. Um, and I would love to do what you guys are going to do on your own today with you all, and let you all sort of tell me about these things and all that. But not the case right now. Um, One big thing that happens in almost all mysteries, actually all mysteries, is suspense. And suspense can be built in many different ways. Sometimes there's music in the background, or sometimes there's a loud noise that's crashed, or somebody's being chased, or we've just learned a new clue, but we don't have the answer yet. So there's always something um, that we sort of are looking for when we think about how suspense is built, right? How is it that we feel like our minds are being kind of I call it kind of being forced to sort of think through things and figure things out? And it's always interesting to me to think about um, the fact that suspense happens in so many different kinds of shows. It always happens in mystery, and it always happens in horror films, which is interesting because horror films are not necessarily supposed to figure it out. You're just supposed to, I guess, be scared. And so, suspense works in a lot of ways. And mysteries typically are not trying to play on fear. They're more so trying to play on your ability to think through things. And so I think that's really interesting that we see suspense in both of those things. The last thing that we're going to do, and the reason that you're going to watch one of the Scooby Doo's, and the reason this idea came to me, um, is because almost every single mystery has something called a red herring. And this is essentially a term for somebody who is placed in a story by the author, to make you think it is them, but it is not. For example, um, if you've ever watched any old Scooby Doo, I mean, like the 1970s Scooby Doo, if you've ever watched any of that, there's almost always some creepy, like, cemetery keeper, or a creepy custodian, or a creepy store owner, something like that. And like 9 times out of 10, you totally think it's them. Like you spend the whole thing being like, yeah, it's totally that dude. He's creepy. He's creeping everybody out. He's scary. He's pale and has weird hair. Totally the bad guy, the villain. And then you get to the end and it's not who that is at all. Um, there's a ton of themes that you can pull out of with mysteries. I mean, so many themes. But we're not even there yet. We're just talking about basic things that you see. But that creepy cemetery keeper, or the creepy custodian, or the creepy shopkeeper, those guys are red herrings. They're always blamed for things. You always think it's them, and they're placed there so you do think it's them. Um, and that's how they get you, because a lot of times with mysteries is that they try to trick you into thinking um, that it's one thing when it's not, essentially. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type up basically like some notes for you. You don't have to write them out or anything like that, but it's just notes for you to sort of keep with you. Um, excuse me, as we're sort of going through this unit, and thinking about how different mysteries handle different things. Um, you're not going to read anything today. We'll start that um, later on in the week. But I did want to. I have two Scooby Doo clips that I'm gonna post for you on Classroom, and I want you to go through both of these clips, and I want you to find some of these common things that you see in mystery movies, TV shows, books, all that stuff. Um, and I want you to tell me, why is this character in here? What's the purpose of this? Sometimes it might just be the definition of that. The red herring isn't there because we have to think it's him, even though it's not. Um, and then sometimes it's totally different. There's suspense in here, and the reason we have to have suspense is because we have to feel like we're building up to something. Something's going to happen. Something's going to change. And there's always, or almost always, I'm going to say always, but almost always, there is a villain in a story. Typically, you will see a victim, almost always a victim, unless it's like a disappearance, something like that, and it's not as common. But typically, you're going to see a victim, a villain, detective, a sidekick, or a group of people who are like problem solvers, like the Scooby Gang. And you will have some sort of problem that needs to be solved. And that's really what it comes down to in most mysteries is what is the problem that needs to be solved? And why are we trying to figure this out? Does somebody die? Somebody afraid? Does somebody want answers about something? Who knows? But we have to figure that out. And so I'm going to give you these two clips. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch these two clips and I want you to, just turn in a Google Doc. And I want you to type out every motif that you see. If you see all of them, put them in there. Tell me where they are. Right. So I know in a pup named Scooby Doo, you're going to see red herring. So if you don't say red herring in a pup named Scooby Doo, I know you didn't watch this video. Not giving you points for that. Okay. Watch the video. But when you get a pup named Scooby Doo set up, and you see red herring, why does he have to be in there? And if you've never seen the show before, I totally recommend it. And I was trying to look and see if there was any old episodes on YouTube, but they're still, I guess, new enough that people are paying for them still. And Scooby Doo's kind of having a thing right now, so people are paying for it more. And I'm not going to make you guys pay for it, and I can't buy content and put it on Classroom for you. That's piracy, and I can't do that. So, but I encourage you, if you have, cable or anything like that, you might be able to watch it on like Boomerang, or any of those other old cartoon channels and things like that. And it's an enjoyable show, and it's definitely a show from my childhood. Um, if you do watch it though, just know ahead of time that the theme song is going to get stuck in your head, and it will pop up at random times. Just so you know. So, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let you go and watch these two clips, and you're going to tell me all of these tropes, and you can look at or motifs or whatever you want to call them. You can look at this notes that I'm going to attach for you, um, and you can add in. You can say there's other things in here too. That's totally fine. But definitely try to look for the ones that I give you, and tell me where they are and tell me what's going on with them. Okay. So I will see you guys back here later on in the week. I'm really looking forward to this unit. Really looking forward to reading some good mysteries, sometimes murder mysteries, sometimes not so much. But definitely going to keep you in suspense, I hope. So, and I promise to keep the Edgar Allan Poe to a minimum. If you had me last year, I'm still sorry for the fall of House of Usher. Okay. But it is what it is. You had to read it. But I will keep the Poe to a minimum, so don't worry. And try to find some newer stuff and try to find some different stuff that might keep you guessing throughout the course of this unit. So, and I think at the end, I'm going to give you the opportunity to kind of write your own mystery type thing. I've got some ideas for story starters and things like that. And I think that would be a ton of fun. And so definitely think that would be worth your time. Something interesting to do, something to keep you occupied, and give you a lot of time to sort of think through um, the writing process of a short story and the writing process of the mystery. So I'm going to hop off here and I'm going to let you go and watch these two clips, and I'll see you guys back here later on in the week.